and welcome to this episode of Dish with Pepper. Today, I will be interviewing amazing author Moore Ramée. She is the author of the book A Good Kind of Trouble. The book is about a 12-year-old girl who becomes a Black Lives Matter activist. I'm so thankful to have her here on this episode of Dish with Pepper.
Hi, Pepper.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming.
It was my pleasure. It's a nice departure from my work day. So nice to get.
Thank you again. I just want to thank you one more time for joining and for writing A Good Kind of Trouble. It really means a lot. The book is such an inspiration and has helped me through this tough time. It was also the first book recommendation I ever did on an episode of Dish with Pepper. So that book means really a lot to me.
Oh, what an honor.
Thank you. Are you ready to get into the questions?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Why did you decide to write A Good Kind of Trouble and focus on a movement like Black Lives Matter?
Well, interestingly enough, when I first wrote the book, it didn't talk about Black Lives Matter at all, which is odd since it's such a large part of the book now. But I started writing the book over 10 years ago. And at that time, there was no such thing as Black Lives Matter. There was, unfortunately, police brutality, but we didn't see the video news recordings of some of those incidences like we started seeing a few years ago. So when I first started the book, I really just was writing a story about what it was like to be a young Black girl and to have friends who weren't Black and maybe didn't understand what you might be going through, and how your differences from your friends might start popping up in middle school or junior high. And so I wanted to focus on that. It was a time in my life that was really, I saw a lot of change, and I saw a lot of similar change with my daughter. So it seemed like a very pivotal time to write about. And then once the Black Lives Matter movement started happening, I realized if I was writing a contemporary story, I needed to include that and talk about how it would affect my main character.
Okay. And I know you touched on how this book was made more for a younger audience, but why did you want to focus on the younger audience?
Well, when I first started writing, I was writing for adults. I had just gotten out of school, and I thought that was the type of writing that I would do. But I started thinking about the books that really mattered to me, and all of those books were the books that I read when I was growing up. And I thought how cool it would be, particularly probably since I had children of my own, how cool it would be to write the types of books that I read and enjoyed. And if I could be the type of author that I had grown up with, that would be kind of magical. So I wanted to touch young people's lives.
Wow, that's an amazing reason. And what do you hope people who read this book will get out of it?
I think two important things. One is to be aware that we all have our differences, and that sometimes with our friends, we think that those differences are scary or mean that we can't be friends because we like different things. And so I wanted to make it clear that you can be friends with all sorts of people. But the other thing was, I was having a hard time with some of my adult friends explaining to them what the Black Lives Matter movement was all about. They have a hard time understanding if my friends who aren't Black, and I wanted a way to explain it to them. And sometimes when you explain something from a kid's point of view, it actually makes it easier for an adult to understand it. And so I was hoping that it would be something that would resonate with people, and they would walk away going, oh, I get it now. I understand what the Black Lives Matter movement is saying.
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about the impact it could make on adults. What did you learn about yourself in the process of writing this book?
Oh, that is a great question. I don't think anybody has asked me that before. I learned that I'm not really strong at writing plots, that I'm much better at developing characters, that plots give me trouble. I also learned that I like being really creative with language, sometimes a little bit too much. And I have a very kind editor who would reel me back from some of those word choices and have me write a little bit more realistic and not as fanciful. So, as far as kind of more self knowledge, too, I learned that I had room for growth with my own friendships of appreciating and understanding their differences.
And can you tell us a little bit about your new book, Say Something? Something to Say. I can see it in your background.
Yeah. So Something to Say it's very different from A Good Kind of Trouble. It does touch on some social issues, but the main character is very different because Shayla is all about her friends, and Janae, the main character in Something to Say, is a girl who is a self-described oddball. She doesn't have any friends, doesn't want any friends, and she's going to be forced to change the way she sees herself because a new kid comes to school, Aubrey, and he very much wants to be her friend. They have some things in common. He likes hanging out with her. Unfortunately for Janae, he really loves being kind of loud and have attention, and that's the worst possible thing for her. She just wants to be invisible. And learn that she has a huge fear of public speaking, which is something I had growing up too. And she's going to be forced to choose between whether or not she can face her fear or if she's going to hold on to the very first friend that she's ever had. Another important part of the story is the school name change that is being considered. Their school is named after someone who was a big name in Hollywood many, many years ago, but it's come out in the news that he has said some problematic racist things, and people in the community want the school's name to be changed, and there's people in the community who don't want to change. So I wrote the book, a few years ago, but it's ironic that it's about a topic that we're seeing a lot in the news right now.
So true. Well, I really can't wait to read that book. It sounds so awesome. And another big thank you to Lisa Moore Ramée for being a part of my show on this episode of Dish with Pepper. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks so much, Pepper. I enjoyed this so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.